One of the things we're very, very bad at in Western society is grief. We hide it away, we send it away, we avoid it at all possible costs. When somebody doesn't go through it as quickly as we think they should go through it, we are quick to say, come on, get over it. Come on. It's been 3 months. It's been 3 years. It's been 3 minutes. It's been 3 hours. Come on, get on with your life. The idea of grief is not something we do particularly well. We've even got special places we do all of our grieving. In other kinds of spaces, funeral homes, somebody else. There was a time, I suspect none of you remember this, I certainly don't, despite my age, a time when someone died, you prepared the body at home. You washed the body yourself, you wrapped them, you put them in a casket. People came by to see them at the house, and you lived in the house for those 3 days before the burial with the body in the parlor. And that's not something we're used to. I'm not sure how comfortable we would be with something like that. This is not a lecture. This is not making you feel bad. It's just when you lose someone, we're not always good at admitting we're feeling something about it, that it hurts. And other people seem to dismiss us sometimes about our grief and wonder why we can't speed up the process of getting through it. This is a story that at least a piece of which is about grief. Jesus is off doing Jesus' thing. They've gone far away from Jerusalem because the religious leaders are not fond of Jesus. Get it? He did not follow the rules exactly the way people were supposed to follow the rules, and so he taken off and was teaching elsewhere, not in Jerusalem. It makes complete sense to me. So he gets word Lazarus is sick, and I don't know if you're me, I still read the text and I keep thinking, get over there, Jesus. Come on. This is your best friend. This is a good friend. You ought to just get over there. Then nobody has to go through the grieving process. You can just grab a hold of him. He'll get up like all the other sick people that you healed. Why do we have to go through this process? Jesus says something to the effect of, it's for the glory of God. I don't know if you've ever been with a family who's grieving, or you were a family who was grieving. That whole telling somebody it was to the glory of God does not fly. I just want to tell you, God needed another angel. Doesn't work. Please don't ever say that to someone who is grieving. And if you've ever had it said to you, I'm really sorry. God can create angels out of nothing, just like everything else. God doesn't need to take people from us, but God does receive those people that have died. And there's a difference there. God is always ready to receive us, but has never been a forcer of our hand. Part of life is death. Part of life is death. A death that we often run from. So Jesus takes his time, whatever they're doing, he spends 2 more days, and then he takes off. He heads back. The disciples caution him. We didn't read this part, but the disciples say, everybody's looking to get you, Jesus. What are you doing going back towards Jerusalem? Stay out here. This is a good, safe place to be. And let's be honest, our own feelings, if we take this not only as a literal story, but as an allegorical story, as a story of a metaphor for our lives, getting closer to the pain is really something we avoid, like the plague. We will detour a long way around any kind of discomfort that is coming our way. When I first went to St. James, that was in the Dark Ages. You know, they had just, lighted candles as a way of keeping light there. This was 35 years ago, 34 years ago. There was a gentleman, when I would see him coming down the hallway, I would turn and go another way after worship. or before worship, because I knew his gig for me was, I taught Sunday school. He would catch me between Sunday school and church, and he would say, James, these are the things that need to be fixed that you aren't doing right before I went into worship. By the way, if you ever want to get on that list with me, tell me all the things I'm doing wrong right before worship. I love it when you tell me I'm doing things wrong after worship. You don't want me to be in a mood when I go into preaching. I might accidentally mention you. Not on purpose, of course. Not on purpose, of course. But I would avoid it. And that was just a minor thing. His words were just words. Half the time they weren't, in my perspective, true. But I always internalized them when I did get that encounter. And it was a habit. It was literally a habit. Whenever I say what a wonderful years I had at St. James, Linda said, you forgot the first 2 years, James. You forgot every week in the hallway. Now I remember it. But the truth of it is we avoid pain. We avoid the hard stuff. And now Jesus is walking towards the hard stuff. Because the first person he encounters on his way to this situation is Martha. Martha is very practical. Remember the story of Mary and Martha? Maybe you don't remember the story of Mary and Martha. Martha is the cook in the kitchen. Mary's sitting at the feet of Jesus. Martha comes in, really kind of, hey, Mary needs to help me in the kitchen. Got to feed all these people. And Jesus says she's chosen the better way. And if I were Martha, I might have had some words for Jesus. That's a whole nother story, whole nother gospel. Maybe we'll talk about it one day, some years to come. But, so Martha is the practical one. And Martha says, if you'd been here, and I agree with her. I just am with her on this. If you'd been here, my brother Lazarus would not have died. I wouldn't be sitting in all this pain. And so, through process, Jesus has her lead him, and Mary lead him to where the tomb is. Now, meanwhile, they've all been mourning back at the house. Leads them to the tomb. Now, when I think about this metaphorically, there are a lot of things inside of us that are dead or festering. I don't know about you. Do you have things that are going on inside of you, pains that you haven't resolved, that you've never been able to talk about? Feelings about yourself that aren't positive, that are negative, that are hard to deal with? Something somebody said, somebody who ambushes you right before worship and says something to you that just throws you off your game, or ambushes you at some other time, and there's stuff that's festering inside, stuff you've never gotten over from childhood or from high school years or from that failed first marriage. There are pieces that you just can't get past. You can't get past inside of you. Festering inside. Well, that's a lot like what Jesus is coming to. A tomb is a place where decay happens, where rot happens. And the practical one, Jesus weeps. He's overwhelmed with grief as all the grievers are gathered around. But then he says, I want you to roll away the stone. He doesn't roll away the stone. He asks for help. I can't do this, or I won't do this. We got to do this together. And they roll away the stone. But before they roll away the stone, Martha says something very practical. He's going to stink. I mean, she says it much more nicely. There'll be a smell. But we know what she meant. Festering things, rotten things, dead things begin to rot, begin to decay. It's a natural part of the process. Let's not do that, Jesus. Let's not face that reality, because I'm already facing a tough enough time, and adding to it the smell, the very smell of death is too much. It's too much. They do it anyway. And then Jesus prays, looks up at heaven, essentially, and says, this is for your glory, not for mine. And then he calls Lazarus by name and invites him to come out. Now, everybody in the crowd thinks Jesus has now blown his last gasket. He's dead. He's been dead 4 days. He's not just going to pop out. But he does. I want to say something about naming. If you have things that are festering inside you, things that have been bothering you, naming matters. You have to figure out what's going on. I was raised hearing the sermon about Lazarus over and over again, and it was very important that Jesus say Lazarus' name, because if he hadn't said Lazarus' name, if he just said, come forth, all the tombs would have snapped open, and everybody would have come out, and it would have just been a mess. A mess everywhere. So he had to be specific. Be specific, Bob. Sorry, that was an echo to a whole movie from a whole nother era. Pardon me. So be specific, and he called out Lazarus. I don't know if that was why he had to be specific, but he called him by name, and he said, come out. And he comes out bound. Even when you name something, you're still bound by it. You can still be held by it. I can tell you, almost 11 months to the day, just minus a day, since my dad died, and I was at his bedside when he was dying, and my sister, my brother, and my mom, and Linda, we were all in the room with him. I was holding his left hand, my brother was holding his right, and my sister was stroking his hair. He had the softest hair. He was 96 years old, unbelievable, and he just passed. 11:30 at night, he just slipped, waited for all of us to be there, and he slipped into the next world. Now, it was April the 23rd. We had a funeral in May. I was packing to come here, so I delayed all the grieving that needed to be done. I didn't have time to deal with my feelings of losing my dad. I didn't. I was busy. Let me just tell you what happens if you don't deal with your stuff. It just pops up in moments when you don't expect it. You'll hear a song on the radio, and boom! Or every time you go to a funeral. September the 2nd, Linda's mom died. Yesterday, I was at the funeral of a 14-year-old girl that I baptized, who had a heart defect, and then started going downhill in January. And man, if you want to talk about the hard stuff of grief, those are hard moments. Don't rush through whatever pain you found. And you can't always unbind yourself. In fact, I suspect you can never unbind yourself. The man who comes out doesn't unbind himself. Jesus instructs all of his friends, all the people who are there, to unbind them, because we need each other. Part of our challenge in facing grief in our world today is you're expected to do it on your own. It's your stuff. It's all about you doing it by yourself. Stand on your own 2 feet. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. That's just a bunch of stuff. We could call it a lot of things. I'll just call it stuff. We are in this together. We're a team. When one of us is hurting, whether we realize it or not, all of us are impacted by it. It hits us all. Lazarus could not unbind himself. He had to have friends. He had to have people help him. When you're going through some tough stuff, maybe your life has been a total breeze. You never go through tough stuff. And if you are, this sermon means absolutely nothing to you. Absolutely nothing. But if you've been through tough stuff, you know how true it's been to have a friend or someone who cared enough to listen to you and help you unbind the wounds that you were struggling with. Made difference. It doesn't magically heal you. Let me just tell you, there is no magical healing for grief. There is no timetable on it. They do have a name for it if it goes on what they consider to be way too long. If 10 years later you're still living in the same place you were 10 years before, then therapy might be helpful. you're stuck. But the truth is, God made us to go through these things together. And a fracture on you is a fracture on us all. We are each other's keepers. We are meant to look after each other. Grief is real, and it is hard. And if you put it off, it will come out. And it may not be at your favorite time. Imagine if it also has to come out when you're in charge of the board meeting at work. Or, you're in the middle of you're flying a jet somewhere, and suddenly it all comes out, and you can't see straight to fly. I hope that's none of you. But feelings are not convenient. They're real and need to be faced. Not just grief, all of them. And that's why we're in this together. That's why we gather in this room, not just because it looks cool and we have these beautiful windows, including the one about Lazarus, but because together as a team we stand. If you get in a rough place, you need to have somebody you can call. If nobody else, you should be able to call me. Or some pastor you know. Someone who will listen and care and love you just the same. Because that's our calling. Jesus didn't blame Mary, didn't blame Martha. Brought life back in the form of Lazarus. It's a theological argument whether it was really resurrection or reanimation. Believe me, if you go before the Board of Ordained Ministry, don't use that as an example of resurrection, because they will tell you it's reanimation. Not from personal experience, from other folks I know. Take death seriously. Take your life seriously. Take your feelings seriously. Know that sometimes we need to be unbound by those who will help us on this journey. And if the church is not the place where we can unbind you, then maybe we're not the church. Maybe we just have really cool music and a live stream and a pastor that has way too many different stoles to wear Sunday after Sunday. But I think we're more than that at Doolin, because I've seen it in the way you treat each other. Seen it in your generosity. I've seen it in your kindness. And I've heard it in the beautiful sounds that you make when you sing or play the bells or the organ or the keyboard. So, take seriously moments of grief like this. Originally, this sermon was not at all going to be about grief. And then I sat in a funeral yesterday for which I wasn't responsible, thank the Lord. I don't know if I would have made it through a 14-year-old's funeral. Not the 14-year-old I baptized and whose parents I married and who I loved. But grief is important. Don't skip it. Take your feelings seriously. And know we're here for you. Take that seriously. All right. Boy, I'd like to end on something really positive. Stop grieving and be happy. Okay, that was a fail. Epic fail. It was a try, but a fail. I wonder if we might take just a moment to confess together.